Please rise for invocation. Where's Glenn at? Pastor is looking good. There he is. Thanks for coming tonight.
You're welcome. Good to see you, Mayor.
Good to see you.
Let's be in prayer. Loving and living Lord, we gather here tonight before you, giving you honor and giving you praise. You are the source of all that is good and the source of all of our many blessings. We are truly blessed to be here in the city of Port Orange. And we thank you for every gift that you've given us. We thank you for the opportunity to come safely and gather here this evening. We ask for your hand of blessing on this city council meeting. We ask you guide and direct our meeting so that it is full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Thank you for helping us to accomplish our work and our goals here tonight. And we pray all these things in the name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Good to see you.
You too.
Thank you, sir.
Will the clerk call the roll?
Present.
Here.
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 Here. Public comments on the consent agenda items. Are there any comments on the consent agenda items?
Great.
Come on, Robert.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive. My concern is with item 10, resolution 1963, changes to the investment policy. I remember discussions about this the other day, and I remember that there was some question about the use of a intermediary, the bank, and there was a question about changing the policy, and that you would be now getting a different system whereby the best practices actually results in more money being spent for the investment guidance. I never did hear a decision on that, how much more it would cost, but it sounded like thousands of dollars more. And so I would certainly recommend that you hold this change to the investment policy until you actually get better information about how much more it would cost. And also, I really don't support the idea of eliminating the investment committee because I think it's good for the city managers and the city council to keep a finger in there and an eye on what's going on from day to day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Anyone else want to speak to any of the consent agenda items?
Mayor, can we get number 11 pulled, please?
Can we wait till we get to...
We're going to do that.
Okay. Since there's nobody else to speak to the consent agenda items, now that we're on agenda approval, the city attorney has a request to make?
Number 11, please.
Okay, so pull up
Mayor.
Before we get through that, do we have a motion and
Mayor. I would like to pull number 10.
Before we get to that,
Okay.
I need a motion to approve the agenda for the night's meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, Chase beat you to it, but I could hear it.
I could
So the
barely
second
hear.
goes to
Stiltner, okay.
goes to Bastian. All in favor of approving the agenda for tonight's meeting?
Aye.
Okay, now I'll accept a motion to remove any items from the consent agenda.
I'd like to remove 10, 13, 14, and 15.
Would you like to make
And
a mo-
11 also.
Okay.
Actually, I have
10,
11.
11.
For a
So
different reason.
10, 11, 13, 14, 15.
Do I have a second to remove those items from the consent
Second.
agenda?
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
May I have a motion for the remainder, for approval for the remainder of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Yes. The remainder of the consent agenda items are approved. That brings us to item 10.
Okay, the question I have actually dovetails Mr. Haven's comment. The background information says that the changes to the investment policy were being recommended by the financial advisor team. So I would like to know a little bit more about why they proposed getting rid of the investment committee and going straight to a single individual.
The investment committee consisted of the city manager, the finance director, somebody else from the finance team, and a council member. We had a discussion a few months ago regarding the group and what the value is of having that committee together, and determined that when it came to the staff conducting business as a formal body, we were not operating in the couldn't operate in the sunshine to get our work done on finance stuff, because we were all on the committee and responsible to operating in the sunshine. So after we had a meeting, the finance committee had a meeting, and Councilman Stiltner and myself and Scott, you were here at the time, right? You weren't here. We decided it would be in our best interest to terminate the committee under the presumption that any financial decision was going to be approved by council anyhow, and that the only people that can advise us on our investments would be our investment advisor, and which is PFM, and the finance director, his staff, and the city manager. The finance director, the staff, and the city manager still meet with our financial advisor to make those recommendations. The only person that's not there is a council member who gets briefed at the same time the rest of you get briefed on the investment policy and proceed. This specific investment policy change updates our manual, or updates our guidance to reflect that there's no longer a committee, and it doesn't change our investments yet, does it, Scott? So, oh, that's right, on the A's. So we are also, as we did, boy, Scott, it was about 3 years ago, we went from AAA only to AA. We're dipping down into the single A bonds now as companies that are worthy get kind of downgraded. So some of the old AAAs are now AAs, and some of the old AAs are single A's, even some of the AAA bonds. So we want access to those. They're stable bonds, and they're also smart investments. So based on our financial advisor's discussion with our finance team and myself, we're making that recommendation, and we changed the policy to reflect that.
Okay, well, here's my concern. It wasn't with the change in terms of the bonds, it was with changing a committee with multiple people to one individual that then would review and propose any changes. And my concern is, with something like finance, any changes ultimately have to come to council.
Right.
But if we vest the power to determine should any changes be made with one individual, if they don't see a need to change something, it's never going to come to council. And I'm sort of under the mindset that, particularly when we talk about finance and investments, two heads are better than one. So I would prefer to see a continuation of at least a couple of people on the committee that would be charged with reviewing what was brought forward by our financial advisors instead of one individual. The other thing I will say, we have a mature set of leaders such as yourself and Dr. Niels, who has been in other places, which is really good, but if we have a change in managers or department heads, then we're in new territory and with people that may not be comfortable or as cognizant of Port Orange and the city and what we've done in the past. So I think, once again, just putting it back to one person, we could have an interim manager, a new manager, who perhaps doesn't have the breadth of experience or the wealth of perspective that multiple people might have. So, as it currently stands, I will be voting against this.
Questions or comments? Anybody else? Scott, you were involved in that decision.
Yeah,
Or that discussion, I should say, not decision.
right. I actually sat on that committee in the past, and one of the problems we were having is we almost committed ourselves to death and paralyzing government from getting work done. Staff members are nonstop in committee meetings and meetings after meetings after meetings after meetings, to the point where it's too intensive to be able to get to the work that actually needs to be done. And so the other thing with this particular committee is that with the information that's being discussed, if you don't have an extensive background in finance and investments and the like, it's at 30,000 feet, you know, and so you would have to have a committee of folks that have that skill set, have a lot of advanced knowledge in that. What we talked about in the past when we dissolved the particular committee was the fact that the finance director and the city manager are the ones that we've hired and entrusted to be able to bring that information to us as we need it. And that particular scenario works really good with this particular committee. And so the council still holds the vision and the policy and the authority to change anything we're doing. And just like we had in the workshop, on this particular topic is that's really where it needs to be held. The other thing that I would offer is for this particular committee, that I feel much better about having our contractors and the finance director and the city manager report back to us in this form on these particular issues, as opposed to having it in a small committee room with one council member in there who's trying to weigh out, the policy and the vision of a group of 5 folks. And so that was kind of the idea, was we wouldn't do it that way anymore. When there's things that need to be addressed, bring them back here. Let's do it in this format. And
Not to mention just the difficulty of putting an agenda together because
Exactly,
of a
yeah.
sunshine law violation.
Yeah.
The person putting the agenda together's got to hope that they're getting everything. The finance manager can't even talk to the city manager about the agenda because it would be a sunshine law
Yeah, well,
violation.
and that's the other thing is, that's a great point, Mayor, and that was something else that really kind of created a lot of issues, was the sunshine law and the constraints, and to be able to have the key folks who need to have the relationship and the constant contact and communication with the contractors that are overseeing these investments. That's vital, and I don't want to handcuff them because we create a committee that now, as they need to do things expeditiously, they can't, or oversee them expeditiously. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it.
Okay. Questions, comments, anybody else?
Well, the only thing I would say to that, Mayor, is the solution may not be disbanding the committee altogether, but just removing the council person. Because if it truly is staff work,
It's still
The
a
staff
committee.
people can't even talk to each other.
Right. So
committee.
let me clarify, please. On page 146, if you're on your big PDF file, which is page 12 of the investment policy, the investment policy shall be adopted by city resolution. The city manager or designee, finance director, and the accounting manager shall review the policy annually, and the city council shall approve any modification made thereto. So what that does, that statement takes it out of a committee, which means we can talk daily about staff work, and it places 3 people responsible for that document to bring to you. And right now, that's me, Scott, and Lupe, Cynthia. Me, Scott, and Cynthia Burgess. So the only, in fact, the only person that's no longer on that is the council member. Yep.
Any other questions or comments on this item? I need a motion for approval so we can vote on it.
Motion to approve resolution number 19-63.
Second.
All in favor? I'm sorry, we need to call the roll on that one,
Yeah.
there being a resolution. Call the roll?
Councilmember Ford.
No.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-1. Item 11, waiver of formal bidding requirements and approval of a standard contract for service with Hatch Company for the annual maintenance agreement for the water treatment plant and water reclamation facilities in the amount of $44,968. I'm sorry, so that I don't get in too much trouble, let me get the motion for approval and a second so we can discuss it properly.
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. The item is open and on the floor. Marilyn, your questions?
Okay, there's what I believe would be a correction to the contract, 1B, which is on page 164, under the term. And the first clause, the term for annual services at the Gamsey Water Plant shall be for a period from, currently reads December 1st, 2019 until November 30th, 2019.
Hard to do.
That should be revised to strike the second 2019 and insert the number 2020, such that it would read, the term for annual services at the Garnsey Water Plant
It's
shall
right
be.
here. It's already
Yeah.
corrected.
Well, you've got it,
Yep.
but the public doesn't have
yeah.
it.
Right.
So I think for the record that I need to read it.
Concur.
So the term for annual services at the Gamsey Water Plant shall be for a period from December 1st, 2019 until November 30th, 2020.
Any other
That
comments or questions on this
Okay,
item?
then here's my question.
Okay.
The reason that, part of the reason that this is also coming forward is that the company that makes this product will not warrant changes or upgrades unless they do the work, which is perfectly logical.
Yeah.
However, this service agreement, if you will, is for only 1 year. But if this is, we're gonna have this piece of equipment for multiple years, I'm just wondering, and this is probably for legal, is there a way that we don't have to agenda this every single year, because we know the terms of this product is that somebody from the company needs to service the piece of equipment they provided?
I think we looked into that, and the contractor wasn't comfortable with a multi-year because of the pricing changes that are going to occur each time we enter in.
Oh.
So we did look to do that, it just didn't happen this year. We'll continue to explore that to see if we can add some language where the price might be modified, but we just couldn't get it done this go round.
I see. So when it comes back next year, it'll be the same company, but the cost, the annual fee might differ.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Anything else on that one? Anybody else on that one? There being none, call the roll.
Can we hold on the roll call? Just can we amend the motion to include your modification that you just stated?
Okay, so I would amend the motion to what I read.
And I'll amend, second to
Changing the
that.
date, right?
Changing the date.
Yep.
And reflection, and that it's a clerical error that has been corrected for the record. On the amendment, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. And on the main item, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Brings us to item 13, approval concurrency and fair share agreement for the Newport Apartments site plan. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion second. The item is open and on the floor for discussion.
Mayor, perhaps, really the reason I pulled 13, 14, 15, they're all about fair share costs. And it's
Wanna discuss
reading
them
them.
together?
Yes.
And then I will accept a motion for approval for items 14 and 15.
So moved.
Second.
We have a
as
motion
well.
second. Items 13, 14, 15 are all open and open for discussion.
Okay, and Mr. Berman, I think, knows part of my question. When you look at all three taken together, it did not make sense, the fair share cost to the peak trips. So, for the Newport Apartments, there's 162 peak trips. So, the fair share cost is $254,130. For Palms at Ashton Lakes, they only have 139 trips. Their cost is $116,978. Those two together make sense. Fewer trips, less burden for fair share. Central Park at Oakwater, which is the proposal for the daycare center and the donut shop, which is on the north side of Oakwater, just across from the Ashton Lake Palms thing, has 243 peak trips, but their fair share cost is only $118,883. So I looked at I made a little spreadsheet, and I looked at all the proposals, and it just seemed to me that if you're generating more peak trips, which is more demand on our road, your cost should be more than the others. So part one of my question is, to what extent does community development have a role, and this may not be something the city does, what role does the city community development staff have in reviewing and checking consistency among different proposals? And each of these three traffic engineering studies were done by a different company.
Correct. Tim Berman, Community Development, we carefully look at all three of those. Anyone that comes in here, we also look at those with Volusia County. And we follow a model that is accepted by the River to Sea TPO. They have a set of TIA guidelines that all cities have to use in terms of the model there. So while we have different numbers of PM peak trips, there's a different distribution of how those trips go onto our roadway network,
Right.
which kind of leads to basically the values then, such as the one for Newport Apartments. That, while it had basically its distribution, puts more trips onto the segment of Williamson Boulevard where you have the four lane necessary of the bridge. That's why it's got a higher cost then. The Oakwater project, that basically is more of a regional project, or for commercial there, which utilizes Williamson and the intersection of Summer Trees and Taylor Road. And that's why that had a higher value on Summer Trees and Taylor than the other ones then. And then the ALF, while it had less trips, since the ALF was more the dominant use on there, it was pulling more trips from further away because of the medical services that would provide for the jobs then, also the PM hour then. So it kind of unfortunately, while it had less trips, it put more trips on our road network that had the deficiencies, such as the Taylor Branch segment, which I think basically that had the $33,000 there, and then also into the segment of Williamson Boulevard then. So it's basically based, while it's not so much as you produce 300 trips, you should be higher, it's more of the distribution of where those trips go and if they impact heavier road networks then.
So you think people that buy donuts aren't going to use Taylor Road, Crane Lakes to Summer Tree? Because that's part two of the question. I love the explanation, very clear. But when you look at the, Taylor Road, Dunlawton to Clyde Morris, when you look at the Palms at Ashton Lakes, the ALF, which is on the south side of Oakwater, right across the street is the donut shop and the child care. They do not list any impact on Taylor Road from Dunlawton to Clyde Morris. That's because the assumption is you're just pulling from the neighborhood?
Again, we look at basically the model. The other thing too, which while all three of these came to you at the same time tonight, we do methodologies to kind of set the parameters at this time, this is what we're studying. All three of these came at basically over about a 6-month period then. So the Oakwater one came in earlier than the Central Park there. So as we put vested trips into the database, my road networks change in terms of ones I have to evaluate based off that TIA methodology. The Oakwater property came in probably 5 to 6 months ago, while the Palms came in 2 to 3 months ago then. So as the data that we get from Volusia County in terms of the roads and basic capacity changes, basically how I have had to evaluate these kind of also changes, monthly to, bi-monthly then. So it's kind of a constant movement as to which roads we're studying, because, and basically if I do methodology in January of 2019, I start working on the TIA, and then in June, I could have Taylor Road at that branch be failing and have to review that in those studies, but I can't go back and say the methodologies that we accepted in January, I can't change kind of the game, midway through there.
But our approval comes from a date certain, which would be today, correct? So we don't have the power to send this back?
Because when we kind of do the methodology, that kind of puts them, that's kind of the guidelines for their engineer to start preparing the TIA, because a lot of data goes into, these TIAs are, typically 200 pages with all the documents and data that they provide then. So there's a lot of input that they have to put in at that moment as we start, working toward those then. So that's, why some of those networks are, different here and there, but a lot of comes to that distribution model that we kind of set ourselves up with the TIA guidelines to follow when they put, the engineer puts that data into there to get that distribution. And like I said too, we also review these in concurrent with Volusia County traffic engineering, and they are in agreement too with this when we bring it forward. So not only is it meeting the river to sea TPO guidelines, Volusia County Transportation Engineering has looked at it along with the city then.
Can a traffic engineering firm play timetables so that they have a project, but they do the study like very quickly so that they take advantage of less demand on a roadway?
It expired, basically there is some time limits on it then. So if they do not act on the there, it would have to come back. For instance, Newport, I believe they had theirs in earlier, and the cost for the Williamson widening had recently increased, and they, had to pay, more than. Because if you look at the property across the street, the Reed Canal apartments that I got approved last January, I think their fair share cost was around $65,000. And with the new values for Williamson, you can see this one went up to $250 then. So,
Okay, I got it.
But if they basically come in and they kind of, get early and then wait, hold off then for a while, we do have the ability to go back. But typically when they come in, they pay this fair share, they move forward with development.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Good questions. Anyone else? Nobody else? Okay. With that, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Let's do the votes on item 13 first.
yes,
Okay.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Councilmember Silver.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. On item 14, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Councilmember Silver.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. And item 15, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Councilmember Silver.
Yes.
Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. So I get my voice back and you're losing yours. It's your turn, I guess, right?
That's right.
Item 17, ERP project update.
I think you skipped 16.
16 was part of the
Oh, okay, yes, sorry.
consent agenda. Thank you. One of the ones that we-
You're welcome. It's exactly the same.
But it has been a while,
Back
hasn't
again.
it?
No, it felt like only about, what was it, 10 months ago we were signing contracts,
Yeah.
and now we're about 7 weeks away from go live. So, I'm Jane Davis, the ERP project manager for the city of Port Orange. Just for those who don't know about that project, and we're basically we're implementing Workday to replace our HR and financial systems, and we're using a company called Collaborative Solutions as our implementation partners. And so this is my, I come in every couple of months and let you know where we are. So, like I said, 7 weeks ago, away from go live now, so it's getting very real, and a lot of work has been happening. So I have a few items to present. So Workday is coming December 2019. We've had a lot of milestones accomplished already. So we did the plan stage, architect, customer confirmation, testing. As you may have known, you've seen some of the weekly updates that we've been doing that for like 3 or 4 months. And that was with many staff. I've got some stats on that coming later. And now we're heading into the deployment stage. So we're getting ready for the big go live. Here's the project timeline, which I showed you a few times before, but Actually, today is wrong because I submitted this PowerPoint a couple of weeks ago, so but we're a bit further along. But we have been on track and on time. This is our project status that we do once a week, but the whole entire project, everything has been on green. We've had within budget, on time, and within scope. So I'm not saying there hasn't been bumps in the road, because there absolutely has, and that's typical for something like this. But we've been able to accomplish everything we set out to do with a very small team, and done a really good job, in my opinion. And to the point that other organizations are calling up the city of Port Orange and asking us how we're doing things and how are you staying on track, including the Campbell Soup Corporation recently called with 23,000 employees, global company, and they wanted to talk to our recruiting department to ask us how our integration with Office 365 is going on Workday, and our staff member was actually able to give them some advice. So good thing is we can call them now and say, hey, Campbell's, how do we do this? So that's just a testimony to how well things are going, and we haven't even gone live yet, and we're kind of out there as a good example of how things should be. So pretty proud of that. The testing, as I talked about, was a huge part of this. Any system like this, you want to go through and make sure everything's working as it's supposed to. So the Port Orange project team executed 6,000 test scenarios. There was a total of 60 testers. We brought in not just people off of the project, but other staff, so they could get some hands-on with the software. And they tested employee self-service and manager self-service. So that meaning staff now are going to be able to do a lot more things on their own without having to call the HR department. They'll be able to view their own information and update information, which takes a load off of the already very small HR department, who now can be more strategic and have more data on their hands to make better decisions and do, much better things that they've been wanting to do with the staff, rather than re-inputting paper forms and duplicating work. And that really goes across the finance too. There's a lot of manual and paper processes that we're now going to be able to automate, which frees them up to be able to do really what they should be doing and being able to focus on the strategy and high-level stuff. So currently, our next big thing that's coming up is the training, which is really big. As you know, anyone who's ever had to move to a new software system, if you don't get trained properly, that's not going to work out very well. So Robin is our training lead, who's doing a great job on that. The training for all staff will get rolled out in December and beyond. We're not just going to finish it then and leave it, so there'll be an ongoing training plan for anybody new. They'll have job aids, which are like basically nice cheat sheets that have it really easily spelled out what you have to do for any new person. We can hand them the job aid, train them, and hopefully they'll be on their way. And then currently our activity this week, we're having what's called Train the Trainer. So there's 20 Port Orange staff who are being trained on how to deliver training, how to train people on Workday. So that's a really nice thing for you to have that team of 20 employees who are learning new skills on how to present and train other people who are in-house now to be able to deliver that ongoing. And it's been really fun so far. I mean, maybe it shouldn't be that much fun, but we had a good time today. So looking forward to the next couple of days. And so switching up a little bit here. So part of the training is so this is one of the tools that we're going to use. Sorry, it's a bit tiny. Here we go. I'll kind of zoom in a bit. But on the left is what used to be our old accounting structure. So part of this project is we've rebuilt the entire account structure that used to be long strings of account numbers tied to each transaction, and now it's a little bit more kind of split out into in a kind of like they call it a slot machine, so you can slice and dice in data to report more easily on it in a more dynamic way than that old-fashioned chart of accounts. But this is still tied into the uniform chart of accounts. Now we've lined up with the uniform chart of accounts. So the model with Workday is rather than lines of account numbers, they use words. So for a I'll take that back. For a non-financial person who doesn't really understand account numbers and finance, I can now type in a word to find out what I'm looking. If I type uniforms, I'm going to get everything I need on uniforms rather than have to remember the long account number. Okay. But for those people who are very attached to their account numbers, and there's definitely a lot of them at the city, there's nothing wrong with it, but we have what's called a crosswalk. So we have a 4,000 line items of their old account number that translates across to the words and the new terminology, and all staff will get that. So hopefully that will help them transition into the new system, but that'll be a bit of a lift to get everybody used to that new way. So HCM, Human Capital Management, this is kind of what's going to replace the HR system. over on the right, you'll see all those systems listed that we're replacing. So what the 4 or 5 actual different systems that HR use today to execute our HR functions, and that's all going to be done in Workday from now on. So that's a great burden lifted off of them having to log in and out of 5 different systems and all the price that we pay to run those. And also for us as an employee, now I don't have to log into 5 different things to do all my stuff. I'm just going to log into one place. So that really streamlines things too.
Okay.
And then finance too. Naviline is our old legacy system, which we will still keep for utility billing and community development until we go out for new products for those items, because we're only replacing HR and finance with Workday, which I think you know, but I kind of just always like to revisit that topic for the record. So the major changes is different terminology. That's going to be one of the heaviest lifts with Workday. That's part of the training, what we're going to do. And like I said, we'll have lots of job aids and tools and things. Reduction in the number of GL accounts, which I talked about. There's going to be mobile capabilities, but it's very secure. They're going to log straight into the cloud on a mobile device, so it's not like that's not anything we're concerned about. It's a more modern user experience. It feels like you're shopping on Amazon when you're shopping on Workday, but it's all tied within the confounds of what your contracts are, so nobody's going to be able to just go and spend whatever. There's actually more controls and budget checks now built in automatically that a person doesn't have to check.
Don't use shopping like Amazon.
I would never be on Amazon.
That means constantly
I would never
spending
do
money. You
that.
gotta have a credit card.
Never do such a thing. And increased ability to collaborate with other Workday customers, so everybody's on the same version of Workday. Back to my point about Campbell Soup, we're a public sector one of their smallest customers, and we can talk to them and have a normal conversation about the things we're doing because we're all on that same. So you're not going to get behind. They force the updates, which I think is a good thing. This is kind of like a little glimpse of what the Workday might look like. The interface. Managing some expectations now. So we are not bringing every piece of data and all that historical stuff over the years and years, and nobody really does that in any of these projects. It's too hard to clean all of that up. And also, once you bring it over, somebody has to validate that data multiple times, and that becomes extremely hard to ever get the project completed. So this is my picture of a nice established garden, which is what Workday might look like in a couple of years, with all of our data and our cool stuff in there. But when we go live, it might feel like this, because we don't have all of that background data. So we're going to have some stuff, but you know, it's not going to be, you see like a flow chart or a button, you go, wow, it's going to be a pie chart, and it's like, bleep, there's not really much there. So it's going to take a couple of months to get that. But we will have some things in there, and you know, as we grow and develop it, there's going to be a lot more available at much faster speed to be able to get reports and analytics out of it. So, and then what we're currently also working on is called the cutover plan, which is where we stop entering things in Naviline and we start entering things in Workday, and there will be a gap. So this is what I'm showing with staff. It's kind of tiny, but on the bottom underneath the gray bar is the last dates that we will enter anything into the old system, and then up above that with the traffic lights is the dates we're going to start using Workday. So that was all happening over the holidays. So Merry Christmas, poor orange staff, but that's what's happening. And everyone's good with it. They really all going to be here to support and make sure it's successful. So that's the finance freeze dates, and this is the HR dates. That's basically my current overview. Let me know if you have any questions.
I do have a real quick one, Jane. You said that it's going to take a while to build the data. I guess my concern would be for finance, because this year during the budget process they use charts, and so
Well, that's
hopefully they're going to be migrating a little more data than some of the other
yeah, well, there's like what we
departments.
did. We went through each kind of each category of the data, and there was a pretty hefty discussion about how far back do we go. So I'm not saying we've cut off and said nothing is coming. So there's certain transactional data they pull across, and then it could be that if you're looking for some kind of look back on a specific topic, we're not going to get rid of the old stuff too. So we may have to take that out and manipulate it in a different way, or something for presentation purposes, but it wouldn't be that we'd be able to just go, hey, Workday, let's take a look at 3 years, and it's not gonna have that. But it doesn't mean we can't produce the information if it was needed in some way.
And that's a concern, because this is more than just compliance. This is about transparency as well. So doing the minimum to be compliant is not our standard. So that's what I want to hear, because we've got to be transparent with it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot easier in future. And once everybody gets to grips with Workday and the staff get, it's going to take a little while to get the training wheels off and really get used to it. But it's a very powerful tool, and there's a lot of they're on the really out there researching and plowing a lot of money back into their research and development about what this can do, and being engaged with other organizations, which we are now, and have a pretty good community going. We can leverage what other places have done too, and ask those questions of, when we see like Denver, the city and county of Denver use Workday, and they actually have had to put a process in place. So many people are asking them questions about how they're doing things. They're kind of overwhelmed, but we can go to them if we had to, and keep an eye on what other people are doing too, and probably come up with their own stuff too. Maybe they'll be asking us again. Any more questions?
A quick question. Does Workday have a built-in cybersecurity software, or is there, what are we doing for it?
Well, it's in the cloud, and they
Without
have
giving
like,
away trade secrets.
No. Oh well, no. I don't get that question though. You have to rephrase that.
Well, what I don't want is to give away any security.
We're not going to be giving any security.
If you tell me it's secure and answer his question without telling me how it's secure.
It is secure. Yeah, I mean, the Federal Reserve are one of their most recent customers, and I think they spent 5 hours presenting to them on their
And you can
security.
tell us individually in private how it's secure. That's fine.
I don't think she can.
No, we need them to come back for another 5 hours for that. It's pretty complicated.
She tells us she'd have to kill us though.
Well, we did all of that through the procurement process. We had the whole security. We evaluated that as that was a big
Right.
piece of the evaluation with all the other vendors and how they did their security.
What else you got?
True. My question was going to be on security, so basically it's leaps and bounds above where we're at now. So,
Yeah, and
That's-
it's always a concern. There's never any software that anybody is ever using that may not be
true,
anything
because
somebody could say something
Yep.
about or be concerned about. But I think
you're
that
100% right.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for the report.
Good. All right. Thank you.
Finance is ready? Yes? Finance is excited and geared up and energized, because that's, all right.
Good answer.
Jake, how did the payroll test go?
Jamie, was that 98%? 98% on the
Okay.
on the payroll, and they're working through the issues now. I think it was my check and Jamie's were the two that didn't work out.
Yours and Jamie.
Or it will be on game day, right?
Well, that's special fund you keep trying to tap.
Right.
Okay. Anything else on ERP? Are we done?
I think we're done.
Okay, citizen participation agended. Advent Health asked to come back on the 19th for that item. So that brings us to citizen participation non-agended items. Robert Reinhagen?
Mayor, council members, I would, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive. I want to repeat what I said earlier meeting, and that has to do with the redesign of the rec center. And I still believe that it's a unique opportunity for the city to consider putting solar on. And you have a design group that's working on it. They're rebuilding the both ends of the building. So as a minimum, it might be possible to put solar just on the ends and not have to consider retrofitting the whole building. And I want to encourage you to get those call in the people that are doing the design and get their input to find out what is feasible. And I also found this flyer that talks about your well field property, and that you've got solar out there now. There's a solar field out there.
Yep.
And I want to encourage you to get those people that designed that to come and look at the rec center, and maybe they could give you some words that could help you to make a decision. But rather than just reject it outright, I encourage you to get more information and more data before passing on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art.
I think, did you have something to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe, Mayor, I believe that we told council last week that we would pass that information on, and we are looking into that option
Yeah.
for the rec. And we had a brief conversation about LEED certified and how we want to move forward with our city buildings. So as we are as the situation arises, we will use alternative energy whenever it is feasible or whenever council wants to make that call, but we'll always give you that option.
Yeah.
So, and we do look at opportunities to, I think our next opportunity for big solar will be if we ever cover the parking area in our parks, the car cover areas, those would be topped with solar panels. So it's something I talk with FP&L about every once in a while. We just haven't decided to cover our parking yet.
Next is Anna Gisbert. Did I say it right?
About a fence?
Yep.
Somebody about a fence?
Anna?
Going once, going twice? 3 times out?
What's the address?
5131 Pineland Ave?
Pineland Ave. Pineland Ave fence issue?
Okay. Well, she comes back, we can
Is she
hear from
late?
her. I have 13 people who want to speak on the same topic, and we have a total of 15 minutes to do this. So that either gives everybody a minute apiece, or it or gives more time if anybody wants to remove their request. The item that everybody wants to speak about is actually going to be at a workshop where anybody can speak and get their 3 minutes on January 28th, where we're going to have an extensive conversation. This is not an item that is on the agenda for action tonight, so unless council wants to extend the time, we have about a minute each per person. And since I haven't heard anybody withdraw their requests, I'll call the first person, Nancy Zielinski.
You gotta come up.
You gotta come up here, Pat. You're gonna have to come up here.
I guess, what happened to Nancy? Okay.
What I was going to say is we have 5 people that will speak. That'll be the 15 minutes. If that's okay with you, we have 5 people that'll speak, and I'll tell you who. And I'm sure everyone else will relinquish their. Okay.
Can't do it then.
Okay. Well, then I have 3 people that want to speak. That we'd like to
If
have.
we have
Put their
time
name
left
in?
at the end, who are they? I'll put them
Well,
at the end. if
they're
there's
in
time
there.
left.
Well, I had asked that the director of Halifax Humane Society would get to speak first for TNR.
Okay, who are the other 2?
Well, one was going to be me, and one,
Okay.
and then we were going to let. There was three other people. They're residents of Port Orange. So, okay.
If anybody takes less than a minute and there's more time at the end, then I will.
Okay.
Then there'll be more. There'll be more than a minute
Okay.
for you and Miguel,
Oh,
and I'm just going to go in order from there.
Okay.
Question, Mayor. Little inquiry.
Mhm.
Can we offer preferential treatment to Port Orange citizens,
No.
Port Orange residents?
Anybody can.
Everybody has to tell us where they live and where they're from, but there's no preferential treatment.
Okay.
This is the First Amendment we're talking about here.
I'm not suggesting not allowing anyone
Nope,
to speak,
that's
Mayor.
okay. Does Nancy Zielinski still want to speak? Okay.
Nancy, get through.
Robin. Mayor's gonna call everybody.
Debbie Dorino?
Debbie?
Yes, please. If you've been called, please come up to the microphone, state your name. And if you know you're gonna be called, please, maybe get ready. It'll give you more time.
Maybe you want to reference who's on deck, Mayor.
Good evening, I'm Debbie Dorino. I live at 6795 Calistoga Circle in Port Orange. I actually would like to give my time to Miguel from the Humane Society to talk. I think that he has more important
Depending on
things
how
to
much
say.
time is left.
Okay.
Thank you. 7:21. Cheryl Robel.
I would like to also give my time with Miguel.
Darlene Kochendorfer.
Good evening. My name's Darlene Kochendorfer. I live at 5571 Lancewood Drive in Port Orange. I've been working with CCFAW for a few years, and I've come here to request that there's an immediate reinstatement of our TNR program because time is not on our side. If we do nothing for the next 3 months, there will be over 300 new kittens born based on what we bring in on a weekly basis. We can't stop now. We'll be so far behind that just trying to play catch up over 3 months, it'll be 6 months behind. So, and based on the numbers, TNR works. The numbers have been going down every year for 8 years. It works. It is working for you. And at that workshop, we will explain why it's working, how it's working, and try to resolve any issues you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie Sauter. If you all have signed up to speak, so if you want to leave time for extra time for the people at the end, I suggest you be ready to go because at 7:34 we're done. Bonnie Sauter.
Bonnie.
Or not.
She's here.
Good evening. Bonnie Souter, 1103 Wild Holly Drive. I just wanted to re-educate y'all that a female cat can go into heat at 4 months of age. She's going to have 4 to 6 kittens 3 to 4 times a year, on an average of 12 kittens a year. I asked Pat the other day how many cats that I have brought for TNR. She told me 500 plus cats in the past 4 years. 250 of those cats being females, each having 12 kittens per year. You're talking 3,000 cats in 1 year. That's not including the litter that the mama had that's going to grow up and reproduce, and they're going to grow up and reproduce, and it's just going to go on and on and on. The problem's never going to stop without TNR. I am a nurse. I work in care planning. Care planning, you have a problem, you set goals, and you implement interventions. So right now, with the cats, the problem is overproduction, and the goal that CCFA...
Thank you. Your address, what city was that in?
Port Orange.
Thank you.
Wild Holly, yeah.
Shira Wild. Okay. Robin Chris Buchanan.
I forfeit my time to Pat Mahalik.
Okay. Edward Egan.
Edward Egan, 5220 Pineland Avenue, Port Orange. I just want to make the suggestion that since you apparently it's costing you a lot of money and you're short of funds, to add a box onto the water bill for a voluntary contribution to animals for $2. Animal contributions run you about 35% return. If you take a third of the water bills that you guys send out, you're going to have a ton of money to run this program in very short order.
Thank you. Sarah Jones. Sarah Jones.
I forfeit my time. This is disgusting.
You want to come up here and say that? Celine Sullivan.
Celine Sullivan, 721 South Beach Street, 111A, Daytona Beach, Florida. And I wanted to, I will attend the workshop. Thank you for allowing a foreigner to speak. And I'm glad you did because I wanted to show you the cats that I have from Port Orange. This is Flame. He went in the trap too young. Everybody see this beauty? He's mine. He came from Port Orange. Herbert and Clyde. This is Misty, another one that went in the trap too young. These are living creatures with a pulse. I don't like to trap, I don't like to get up in the middle of the night, and I don't like to go to Mason Ave all by myself. But I do it. And this is Misty, a Port Orange cat that is now mine also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy Rojas?
Hi, Nancy Rojas, 151 South Road, provide exhibits for each council. Thank you. I live in Ormond Beach. I'm representing the Yapping Chihuahua. I noticed that you opened your session with a prayer to God, which means that you are wanting His blessing. I brought you each a photo to look at. You should see a cat in a photo with a woman. Please look at the cat's eyes and tell me that that cat does not have a soul. It was created to the person by whom you pray to in your every opening ceremony. You have an obligation to do the right thing for these cats. I'm going to give you 2 answers on how to solve the problem. Your problem isn't money, it's complaints. 1, provide a piece of land that is a sanctuary where you take all the cats and the TNR people will serve in one area. 2, instead of, and I've heard there's a rumor, instead of making there's an ordinance illegal to do TNR, make it so it's illegal to call and complain repeatedly. Charge them $100 if they're going to pick up a cat, and make there an ordinance that the cats are habitat protected. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Miguel, they did a great job. You got the full 3 minutes. Come on up.
Council, thank you. My name is Miguel B. Hassan. I'm the CEO of Halifax Humane Society. You know, judging by the outstanding interest tonight, the foregoing public comment session has been full of passionate speeches, opinions, anecdotal accounts, and personal experiences of the successes and failures of TNR. However, on the issue of community cats, there's only one fact-based truth, and that is that TNR is the only proven method of population reduction. As we hear stories of neighborhood complaints, soiled properties, potential disease, and other trials and tribulations, I'd respectfully remind the council tonight that the standard problem-solving model begins with a definition of that problem. Citizen complaints are based on sheer number of roaming cats, a problem that, aside from being man-made, is further proliferated by Florida's temperate weather, geographical proximity to bodies of water, and other sociological factors. With the defined problem and identification of the root cause, we further look into the problem-solving model to discuss solutions. One solution we have a century's worth of experience on is trap and kill. An age-old model where attempts to trap cats and surrender them to shelters are made, knowing well that no one comes to a shelter to adopt a cat that cannot be tamed. Further, it is statistically proven and common known wildlife fact that so long as resources allow an introduced species to thrive, man-made efforts to eradicate not only cause citizen uproar, but regularly fail as well. The second effect of an established plan is TNR and variations thereof. These generally involve citizen groups and staff that help trap, vaccinate, and sterilize cats before returning them to their origins. The body of research suggests that they form colonies restricting growth and competition from other cats and do not affect other wildlife. I would turn your attention to the Trap, Neuter, Return compendium of peer-reviewed research, which clearly illustrates that this is the only model that works. It may also be the answer to any questions you have this evening after hearing personal accounts. The somewhat troubling aspect of the most recent decision is not based on models or national statistics. It's based on Port Orange's own statistics. The notion that halting the program would somehow be of cost benefit to the city. I brought with me our Port Orange intake statistics, and I just asked that there's a couple extraneous variables here that cause a little bit of a variance. In 2012, when the program started, HHS was admitting 827 cats from Port Orange citizens and 8 COs. In 2017, that number was 432. Though last year was a small increase, likely due to geographical and sociological factors I mentioned earlier, 2018 number was still only 480. This year, with 10 months of the entire year behind us, your intake has only been 374. To entertain any curiosity of finances behind these endeavors, I submit the following. In 2012, the city spent over $64,000 in stray cat intakes to Halifax Humane Society. It's the same year I opened the clinic. In 2018, the number was reduced to $38,000. If you add the $13,000 the city spent on TNR, that total would be close to $15,000 that you guys have saved. Now, as a reminder, HHS charges less than half of admitting a cat just to sterilize it.
Thank you.
May I continue for just 20 seconds?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Do these guys up here?
Go ahead.
20, 30 seconds, yeah.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
If you were to eliminate the funding for TNR, the increase of admitting those previously TNR'd cats would be approximately $27,000, using 29 as a year to date. In addition to the 38,000 you've already admitted. That would put you over 65,000 in admission fees and surrendering cat fees year to date. Further, without citizen assistance, these would multiply faster than they can be caught by any ACO alone, which will only inevitably raise the cost to the city. As a CEO of HHS, I implore you to please reconsider. The promise the city has shown is exemplary, and you are on your way to a humane solution for all parties concerned. Please continue to fund this important service and reap the benefits of a volunteer force that is dedicated and passionate. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And we have 3 minutes left, and it's all yours, Pat.
Three.
I'm sorry. 3. Thanks.
Good evening. I'm Pat Mahalik. I'm the co-founder of Concerned Citizens for Animal Welfare. I live at 216 Yorktown Drive in Daytona Beach. We have been doing TNR for your city and taking care of signing the people up, registering them, making appointments for them since the year 2012. In that time, we have registered hundreds of colonies, businesses, people from all walks of life that do not want, they're feeding cats and they don't want to have them reproducing. And like they've said here, they reproduce more than any other species because of the weather conditions and things like that. So we have a problem here. The only thing that will fix it is TNR. I urge you to let the program run. The program, we schedule about 12 cats a week from Port Orange. Okay, we've got 8 weeks left till we have the workshop. That will cost the city, if they catch all 12 cats, that will cost the city $3,600. If you put in a moratorium on your animal control, taking cats and spending $4,400 a month at the Humane Society to impound cats, if you would put a moratorium on that for 1 month, it would pay for those 8 weeks of surgeries, and we could have the workshop and sort all these problems out and bring that. There's a lot of misinformation out there that you're being fed. Some of it is from complaints. If you read your contract that you have with us and with your people that are doing the trap, neuter, return, it says that if you have a cat problem, the very first people, the animal control officer goes there, figures out what the problem is, and they call us. We go in and take care of the problem. The city of Deltona has exactly the same program as you. In 2012, they had 1,282 cats there. They followed the program to the letter. In 2018, they had 184 cats. In 2012, they spent $128,000. In 2018, they spent $18,000. That's a lot of money, taxpayer dollars, that's going to be wasted for 8 weeks and going to put us back at least 6 months, maybe a year, trying to catch up. Meantime, what are you doing with all these cats? What is your plan for the next 8 weeks for these cats that they're bringing them in? You don't have a plan. You don't have a plan. To not give us this 8 weeks of surgeries till you have a workshop that we were promised the last time we were here, a workshop to sort this out. Did we get the workshop? No. Not fair. Not fair for all we've done for your city. For free. For free. All of these people are free. They spend their own.
Thank you. Well, what we have said is that we will be having a workshop on January 28th, and I'm sure that I will see you all then, along with a lot of other experts. And then,
This is a free invitation for people to torture and
would you
kill
like?
these cats.
I'm sorry, we're done with public participation for the evening.
That's sad. You people are getting voted out.
10-minute recess.
Vote them out.
And we are back. Comments and concerns from council members. Why don't we start at Scott's end?
Just a comment, I guess mostly for Jake and his staff. I've been sending the city manager some of my concerns on some of the issues that we're seeing and experiencing with the feral cats around the city. And so I would encourage everybody to continue to do the same, especially the issues we're having around the business properties. So when we get to the workshop, that's a really big focus area, Jake, that I'm going to be looking for is solutions there. Some of our business sites and plazas, it is absolutely out of control. You know, and the one thing, and I wish some folks would say, you know, we do have some folks that are monitoring and taking care of these colonies, and they're doing it the right way, and they're doing a great job, and that's appreciative. But there's a lot of variables here. There's a lot of tons of moving parts, no question. And like the one person acknowledged is that you've got a big human element where a lot of people are just not doing the right thing, and that's causing a ton of issues for our residents and us as a whole as a city. So I think that workshop is going to be quite lengthy. So I think each of us individually need to make sure that we're, whatever our concerns are individually and geographically located to our districts, that we're giving staff plenty of time to say, hey, come January, this, you know, I need to know about these 5 or 6 things or whatever, and here's my concerns, and, you know, parks or schools or whatever, because I'm getting a lot of contact now that this issue has come to light, and actually develop even more concerns with some of the stuff that's being posted. I saw somebody posted some stuff on there the other day about how they bring cats to Port Orange to drop them off. Well, that's part of the problem, you know. So anyway, I just think there's going to be a lot, and we need to continue that information going to Jake and his staff so they can be well prepared for the January workshop.
That it?
That's it.
Drew?
Yeah, one of the properties with several cats is the 7-Eleven at Williamson and Dunlop, and they stopped in the other day and got gas in them.
Several hundred?
I didn't see several, but it was the middle of the day, and I saw at least 5 different cats. Just got gas, walked in and got a soda, came out, saw 5 cats. I was there 4 or 5 minutes, and so I mean there's a pretty good presence everywhere of the you know, the cats are, I don't want to say they're taking over, but there's a lot of cats, and it just seems like they're becoming more prevalent and more obvious. So you know, not expert, I don't know what the answer is, but something's got to be done better.
Chase?
For sure.
Did you have any, I'm sorry, did you
No,
have anything else on the
I'm
other
good.
items?
I'm
Chase,
good.
council comments?
Yeah. Real briefly, nothing about cats. I'd like to talk about a human being. Just want to read into the record tonight that council took a moment to recognize that Port Orange resident and former Spruce Creek High School basketball player and graduate Jesse Davis passed away on Friday, November 1st at 3:57 p.m. at the tender young age of 21 years old. I had the privilege of coaching Jesse, and I can tell you that rarely does a player come along like Jesse that's able to defy the physical odds that were stacked against him and compete successfully at a level he was able to compete. But more than that, as a player, Jesse will be far more remembered as a kind and gentle person he was. He was respected by his teammates, he was trusted by his coaches, and he was loved by his family and his friends. Jesse Davis will be missed. He was a good boy. I've sat in far too many hospital rooms watching parents hold their child's hand in their last hours of life. It's never a pretty sight, and it's never fun to be a part of. It never gets any easier. So my encouragement to parents out there, hold your children tightly tonight, and you know, be blessed that you're able to hold them inside your home tonight.
Indeed. Do you want to try to follow that?
I don't have any comments.
Thanks, Chase. And Jake, I would echo what Scott said, is that I want to be prepared on January 28th as much, and as with multiple options, because this is not a TNR problem, this is a feral cat problem. We need to keep an eye on the ball of what the problem is, which TNR is a tool we may or may not utilize in some fashion. That's one component of it. We need to keep our eye on the ball that this is not TNR or TNR less. This is feral cats that we're talking about, and I would hope and expect that staff will be ready for us.
I concur, and we'll be as ready as we can be. I'm sure you'll throw us a few curveballs that we didn't prepare for, but it's a workshop.
We're good for that.
We can, we can try to nug it out at the workshop and talk through it, and if we can't, we'll just go back and do more research. But, we have, I plan on presenting something between let it go and the nuclear option, just to show you what the continuum could be, knowing that we'll end up somewhere in the middle or hopefully toward more control. But I concur. We talked a lot about TNR numbers tonight, and I know, but we need to get a good handle on controlling feral cats so it doesn't get out of control, and who can and who can't, and where it can and where it can't.
To that end, I know that numbers on this are difficult, but when we're talking about this subject, the problem is that it's been very inconsistent. We're successful in some areas, we're going in the wrong direction in others.
Right.
So anything that you can give us, the metrics, the numbers, so that we can have a true analysis,
We
would
will.
be most helpful.
And Council, Mayor, like another subject near and dear to our heart that I'm not going to mention, I will bring in people on one side of it and people on the other. You're going to hear both sides, and that is not to make one side go away. It's to give the most balanced reflection of what's going on, and you all are going to have to make a policy decision at the end of the day, and I don't want you to do it the way I want it to be done. I want it to be done the way that we want it to be done and done right. So it's only right that we bring the pros and the cons. You heard from the pros, but there's another side of that. Where I sit, A, it's irrelevant. B, I'm not sure yet. So that's the good news, and I wish the folks out there could hear that I am not one way or another. So we'll try to keep an unbiased, balanced approach to the workshop, bring it in, and try to resolve it.
I think the bottom line is that we are acknowledging that there is a feral cat problem.
Yes, sir.
We're not saying that there isn't. There absolutely is. And what we're saying is that the results have been mixed after 8 years, and
Sure.
we have to re-examine that, and that's what we'll be doing on January 28th.
Yes, sir.
Board appointments, interviews, and reports. Parks and Rec Advisory Board, they did not have a quorum, so we'll go to the Golf Advisory Board report.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Rich.
Richard Lee, 6393 Long Lake Drive, Port Orange, Florida. What I'm about to cover is the notes from the meeting we had on October the 1st. At that meeting, in addition to the normal board members that were there, we had Bob Duquette, who's the general manager. We had the marketing manager, Reggie Hunter, and the new course superintendent, which was really nice to have the trio of leadership there. We started with, as we always do, with the financial review that Bob went through, and the nut of it is rounds are down, but so isn't cost. So he's been able to balance the reduction in activity with a reduction in workforce for the most part, and that's where they've got some cost savings. So from looking at the numbers, it looks like they may actually come in at a zero this year or very close to break even, which is, I think, what everybody is hoping for. They had a very strong junior program over the summer. They had a lot of activity, a lot of kids participating, which is great because we're looking to try to grow that group in particular to get more people playing golf. They've also hired a new a golf pro who's quite young, and hopefully he'll be able to relate to the kids better than somebody in my kind of hair. Enough. I have some left. I mean, it's dissipating, but anyways. The marketing director, Bob talked a lot about what the marketing director does and the activities that she's involved in. trying to meet with different organizations, chambers of commerce that she's a participant in, a member, an officer in some of these organizations, to help drive more tournament activity at the course. And there's been quite a bit of tournament activity. What happens is tournaments, if it's a good tournament and people are satisfied with it, they get a lot of repeat performance. However, over time, some of those organizations get smaller, so they don't have as many participants going on, or some of the organizations disband and they're no longer there. So she needs to continue to cultivate those relationships and drive more tournaments. She is evaluated based upon a marketing plan that she puts together at Kemper's insistence at the beginning of the year. So she has a monthly quota and an annual quota that she has to meet in terms of the number of tournaments and revenue that she gets. So there's some impetus for her to make sure that we're getting the kind of revenue and drive-through and activity that we'd all like to see. The bulk of the meeting was actually focused on course conditions, which tends to be the one thing that we talk about a lot. The new superintendent, I think if you recall 4 or 5 months ago when he started, he was asked, what's the biggest dilemma you have today? And it was really 2 things, weeds and employees. I've got to get my employees doing the right things. They're enthusiastic. They want to do what's right, but they don't know how to. They haven't been trained effectively. So he spent a lot of time training people, even to how do you cut a hole in a green and make sure it's tamped down effectively so that you don't get the little roll up and people complaining about those kind of things. He's done a great job with that. He's done a miraculous job with the weeds. Some cases to the detriment of the fairway because it looks like a bombing run has gone through there and there's lots of bare spots. But they're starting to fill in too. The grass and the greens are phenomenally better than they were 6 months ago. Not that we don't have some that are still in trouble. Number 4 in particular is still an aggravation. There's still some shade issues, some trees, but overall it's really been a tremendous improvement. The tees have great grass on them now where we didn't have great grass before. So we should really be talking about the great value that this course is and the great conditions of playing conditions that it has now. The downside of things is really, in order to do some of the things he had to do with the weeds and growing the grass, was he neglected the sand traps. So the sand traps started to get some grass going around and you couldn't tell where the perimeter was. He did it intentionally, and in his defense, what he's finding is the sand traps really need to be redone in a lot of cases. There's not enough sand in them, they're not deep enough, so you're shallowing out when you try to, if you actually hit a sand wedge the way you're supposed to, which is unlike what most of us do. You shouldn't be bottoming out in the bottom of the sand
You weren't
trap.
looking at me when you said that.
No, I did. No, I was looking over here.
Okay.
But they were just redone.
I've seen them play before.
They were just redone a couple years ago.
Yeah, but the
Well,
sand, it moves out as the rain, and we've had a lot of rain, it starts to move out. And I think in some cases, they weren't redone the way they should have been done. One of the things I'm finding with Ken is Ken's all in. I played on a Saturday. He and his wife were out digging a ditch off of number 10 because there was a problem with a drain. And he's there on his own time with his wife trying to make improvements to the course. So he's really got this thing in his mind that I've got to get this thing better, which we really appreciate. The other thing is the poor irrigation system we got is really, really old. And it looks like it was really never put in correctly. The example I would give you is if Ken wants to water the green on 18, he can do that, but he's also going to be watering another spot because he's got 2 zones hooked up to the one and he can't change it. So he's got to the point where in some cases he's hand watering, which is labor intensive, to avoid building muck basically in one part of the course where he doesn't need the water and trying to get it to the place that he does need it. That system's going to need to be replaced. Some of the heads don't work. They're 20 plus years old, as I said. It's going to be expensive. So they're proposing that over time they may do a piecemeal, do 3-4 holes a year, so they can fit it within the budget without having to come to the city and say, hey, we got to spend X number of dollars to try and get this done. What else we got? Oh, the other thing that we looked at, and I brought this up actually, I was researching some stuff for the U.S. Golf Association has a program called Facility Tool, which is sort of an odd name. But there's a course in South Florida that has started to utilize this tool. And the tool really is one to reduce water usage. by doing a whole bunch of metrics with soil samples, temperatures, air temperature, humidity, drainage patterns, some infrared focus of the course and how it shows up. And with that, they've been able to save 30% of the water usage on that course, and it also reduces fertilizer use and pesticides. So that's something that they're going to look into to see if we can't borrow from that concept and use that at Cypress Head. The last thing we did was there was a motion made and passed that we should start each meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
Comments, questions?
You should have led with that.
But it was the last thing we did.
All right. Questions and comments for Rich? Anyone?
Just hole 4. Man, I think just the orientation of it and the design. You know, unless we went in there and just took out a ton of trees, I think that's just going to always have some issues there. You know, maybe what we need to look at is in the future if there's a way to not necessarily redesign. Well, yeah, I guess redesign hole 4, but complement it with other things. You know, as opposed to grass. Yeah, you gotta and focus on the areas. Maybe it makes the fairway a little tighter and narrower, which will make everybody happy. But but you know, there's some other things maybe that we need to look at. Because you can't at this point. You just can't totally redesign that hole.
If you took out a lot of the trees on hole 4, you'd find a lot of my balls. I'll tell you that.
Sure. Yeah, but I think it's got its challenges.
It does.
I have also heard a lot of really good comments about course improvement, getting control of the weeds. You're right. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's also going to take a little bit of luck with weather. You know, we can't get too much rain. We got to get just enough. We got to, so. I appreciate you mentioning his efforts, and that goes a long way. But I've been hearing a lot of positive stuff.
We are obviously subject to the weather, but I did discuss with all of the board members that we as board members should be advocates for the course and talking about the great conditions that the course has, and not be saying things that are negative about it to anyone, because it has changed dramatically in the last 6 months.
Agreed.
And I've been critical of the past about course condition because that's what I've been informed. But I also want to give credit to where it's due, and I've heard excellent comments about the improvements of the course. So that's good to hear.
It has to do with the vigilance of your board.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's going to solve hole 4, Scott, is you just got to turf it. That's the only thing that's going to fix hole 4. I'm not really happy to hear that we didn't do the sand traps right when it was just 2 years ago. That gives me a little disappointment.
Yeah, it's not all of them, but there are several sand traps that really need to be redone. They're just too shallow.
Well, I want to remember
I don't think we did all the sand traps.
No, we didn't.
We did.
We just
a
expanded
few.
them.
We did tee boxes and greens, and there were
Just
a few
the ones that you were missing, we made bigger.
Yeah,
That's right. Okay. That
I know it
that
feels
makes
that
sense.
Oh, yeah, great. So they need a bigger sand trap.
That's right. I remember now.
Anything else?
Thank you, Rich.
All right, appreciate your time.
Environmental Advisory Board report.
There's John.
It's a John Macaluso sighting.
Good evening,
John.
Mayor Burnett, council, staff.
How are you, John?
Giving a brief update on environmental activities, Environmental Advisory Board. We met on our last meeting October 28th, which was an extremely informative meeting. Finally, we had an informative meeting. Representatives from Cobb Cole Law Firm, Advent Health, and Cardinal Environmental came in and reviewed the progress of the EPA designated brownfield site located at 5811 Williamson Boulevard, which is the potential site of the new Advent Health Center. Now, the EAB was updated on the progress of excavation and disposal management plan as stated in the brownfield site rehab plan. Are you familiar with what a brownfield site is? Everyone understands that, okay.
I think it's important that the contamination in a brownfield can either be real or perceived.
Yeah, just for the public's sake, it's a previous developed site that had prior possibilities of contamination based on past use. Now, when you're designated as a brownfield, it doesn't necessarily mean it's contaminated. It is one of the only programs the EPA has that not only does it affect funding for public, but it's also funding for private applications, which is unique for the EPA.
John, if I can chime in real quick,
Sure.
for those listening that are wondering, if they weren't in Port Orange 30 years ago, that site used to be a thriving, popular truck stop.
It was a truck stop, correct?
Huge truck stop.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I remember
Just on a side note, the Environmental Advisory Board is designated as the Brownfield Review Board for Port Orange Brownfield designated projects. So we intend on staying up to date on what's happening there. Other items, we received an update and presentation on the new interactive development activity report from Melanie from Community Development. The board gave us a complete user update on the interactive report. It was an excellent report. All the information now is right at your fingertips. It's a great job getting that report. Port Orange Family Days. Environmental Advisory Board wants to thank City Manager and staff for having us and setting us up in a booth with a table and giving us the opportunity to talk to the residents of Port Orange and other surrounding communities on the new recycling plan that we have in town. And of course, giving out literature and giving out refrigerator magnets, the first thing people saw was no more glass. No glass, glass in the trash. That was the biggest thing. Most of the questions and comments were directed at the glass to trash requirements. Most of the residents wanted an explanation of why. And we spent most of the time explaining why and what was going on.
Thank you.
But key to our discussions were most of the residents favor finding an alternative to throwing the glass in the trash. So keep that in mind.
Did they mention, and I'm not saying this sarcastically, did they mention and are willing to pay if
we did bring up the cost,
Yeah.
the cost factor.
Yeah. I think that'll end up being.
Yeah, we obviously we don't have a figure, but
Not yet.
we did bring up the fact that it would cost to continue to recycle glass, and would potentially look at an alternative.
Thanks.
Let me just, again, John,
Sure.
just for your benefit and all of us, because we all continue to have this conversation, we have to be careful about saying to continue to recycle the glass, it's going to cost. It's going to cost us to continue to pick it up separately. It still may not get recycled.
Sure.
So if there's no market, it didn't get recycled, it just goes to the dump.
That's
It's just going to cost you 3 times as much to get it there.
Yes, sir.
So that's when we want to be, we just got to be consistent.
That's
with
what we were doing.
Right,
I
exactly.
have a
right.
plan to get it.
Sure.
I don't have
And
a
if we
plan.
can continuously get
I
it
will have a
recycled
plan.
unless
Right.
another plan dries up.
Right.
We just got to be careful
Right.
with that message.
Absolutely. If the Sarasota plant doesn't make it cost effective, then they're going to stop, and
There you go.
I'm not
Sure.
going to ship it over there to put in a garbage can.
Right.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm sure will be an issue as recycling continues in town. On a closing note, I'd like to thank one of our members, Christine Cunningham. She put together a great display for our booth, spent a lot of time on it, and the EA board is looking for bigger and better things for the next Family Day.
Cool.
So, appreciate it. Any questions, comments?
Great job.
Appreciate it, John.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
See you, John.
Mayor,
Take
I'll
care.
say something about our next project in my city manager comments.
Okay. Public hearing, second reading of ordinance number 2019-33. Ordinance number 2019-33 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, relating to comprehensive planning, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan, amending the future land use designation for plus or minus 1.6 acres from public, institutional to rural transition, 0 to 2 units per acre, providing for conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2019-33.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second reading of the ordinance. The item is on the table for questions and discussion. Council?
Nothing further from my
There being
end.
none. When you want to hear care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us. Final comments? Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford. Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
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 Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Didn't want to try to talk us out of it, Glenn?
I'm old enough to know better.
One would hope. Item 24 is ordinance number 2019-34, conventional rezoning, Cracker Creek. An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, rezoning plus or minus 24.53 acres located at 1789 Taylor Road from planned unit development, PUB, to rural residential and floodplain conservation, F-C, rezoning plus or minus 1.6 acres located at 1793 Taylor Road from Planned Unit Development PUD to Rural Residential RR. Rezoning plus or minus 16.5 acres located at 1795 Taylor Road from Planned Unit Development to Recreation and Floodplain Conservation F-C. Rezoning plus or minus 9.6 acres located at 1815 Taylor Road from Planned Unit Development to Office Residential Transition ORT. And I hate it when an email pops up in front of something as I'm trying to read it. Planned Unit Development PUD to Office Residential Transition ORT and Floodplain Conservation F-C, authorizing revision of the official zoning atlas and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2019-34.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and I don't think that would have happened if it wasn't so gosh darn long and got to the bottom, but that was one of those weird moments. This is second reading of the ordinance. Any questions or comments, council? There being none, would anyone here care to speak to the item? He's learning. Back to us, final comments. Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Item 25 is second reading of ordinance number 2019, which is the Ninth Amendment to the Port Orange Gateway Center Plan Commercial Development Master Development Agreement. Ordinance number 2019-36 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, approving the Ninth Amendment to the amended and restated Master Development Agreement for Port Orange Gateway Center Plan Commercial Development, PCD, and the Conceptual Development Plan, CDP, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2019-36.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The item's open and on the floor for discussion. Council comments or questions? There being none, would anyone here could just speak to this item? Final comments? Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. That brings us to item 26, which is second reading of ordinance number 2019-37, per diem and travel reimbursement rates as published by the General Service Administration. Ordinance number 2019-37 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, establishing uniform standards for travel and per diem use and expense reimbursement for city officials, employees, and other authorized persons, providing for travel and per diem reimbursement rates, procedures, exceptions, and other limitations, providing for ratification of the travel and per diem related expenditures commencing on October 1st, 2019, consistent with this ordinance, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2019-37.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Items open on the floor for discussion, comments, or questions, council.
Second reading.
Second reading being none. Anyone care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us. Final comments. Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Regular agenda. Approval Amendment 1 to the Down Under Causeway Park Down Under lease agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation. The recommended motion is to move to approve Amendment number 1 to the Causeway Park Down Under lease agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the required documents. May I have such motion, please?
Second. Move.
I have a motion
Sorry.
I'll second it.
from Councilman Ford, a second.
I was waiting for you.
Councilman Bastian. The item is open and on the floor for discussion. Yes, a Penelope Crusoe.
Penelope Cruz, planning. Excuse me. So this is the draft concept plan that we've been looking at for a while now. And so we're here before you tonight. We finally have gotten to the point with DOT where we are able to put forth a an agreement that both sides have agreed to for us to be able to move forward and actually try to start implementing all these ideas that we've been talking about for the past year or so. This concept plan is consistent with the CRA plan as well as the city's comprehensive plan. It's also recently you guys have just approved the fiscal year 20 capital improvement program that funded some initial steps to get going on the Down Under. Additional funding will be from the city, as well as we're working with some organizations on grants to get some of this stuff funded, as well as partnerships with some of the business owners and community partners down there. So the whole plan is really just to capitalize on that redevelopment that's been going on down there by the private sector and just try to make it a really unique and inviting place and part of the River District. So with that, if you have any questions, I can try to answer them.
Sorry.
I couldn't hear you. Go ahead. Mine'll be quick.
Let's start with Mr. Microphone here.
I've had requests from a couple of folks asking about floating docks. I don't know if that, is there any plan for that? Is there any room for any of those down there? Is that something that the businesses would do themselves?
That's not part of this plan. This plan is primarily just aesthetic type of improvements and just better organization of parking and signage down there. As far as docks, if there was something the city wanted to look into and reestablishing in the future as a public park where we used to have, that would be a separate conversation. And then obviously the businesses could always apply for docks per our land development code as well. But this is mostly aesthetic improvements to kind of revitalize the area, address additional parking, and kind of reorganize the parking and reestablish that master steining down there.
Okay. The other thing that I would ask about, is there a reason that we would go to painted murals as opposed to vinyl wrap?
We haven't gone to anything yet, so we're going to put an RFP out, and we'll have proposals come in. The main thing that we had to, this agreement gives us DOT's blessing on the general concept. So we typically, you have to enter into a much more detailed agreement with FDOT. You have to show them your exact design way in advance. And we weren't really there yet. Before we spent all this money getting to that, we wanted to make sure that they were generally okay with our idea. And so on the murals and things, we just, what they're agreeing to, we're not allowed to use words and things like that. So we basically have come to an agreement that it'll be either historic, coastal, seafood themed, nautical, something that fits the flavor of the area down there. So we got them to agree to that general, what's the theme of the murals, and then we'll put that RFP out, we'll get the proposals, that'll come before you, and you all vote on the method.
Yeah, I was just speaking in terms of the whether using a type of material as opposed to paint. Paint can easily be defaced, and once you deface the mural, that's it. As opposed to material, you can wash it off. But that's a detailed discussion for later. So
yeah.
All right, that's all.
Marilyn?
I just had two questions. I mean, I understand what the word themed railing means, but this railing around the drainage across from the parking and the entrance. What sort of theme would you put on a railing?
Like a nautical, like either rope and wood,
okay,
or
'cause
yeah.
I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
My only other question, I'm sure they've already figured this out. Just looking at the map, is the existing drainage enough? I'm wondering when it gets really rainy, does the water encroach on the parking spaces?
So they do. I mean, when
Not
there's
down there?
king tides and things like that, we have heard from the businesses that the water comes up pretty high. But we are not adding any impervious. We'll probably actually, improve that slightly. There are no drainage improvements planned in this. This is really just aesthetic to kind of jazz the place up because you've got all this reinvestment down there and it's kind of gray and dingy. And so we just want to kind of play off the reinvestment down there. So we're not adding any impervious. It wouldn't make anything worse. We are already starting to work with Public Works on some improvements to stabilize that parking just right up front before it gets any worse, and then seeing what we can do to make small improvements here and there.
I think it's a great idea.
Gentlemen, group?
I don't have anything further till we have a plan, you know.
Okay. Penny, does the city own any property down there, or is all of the property owned by the state and by the private business owners?
So what you see in red is all owned privately. The rest of the area under the bridge is owned by FDOT, and we have the long-term lease on it, and we have maintenance and enforcement through that lease.
Okay, so any shoreline in that particular area is pretty much all private, or access to where you could put docks and stuff like that. I know
Correct, where you see the red.
Really small, yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then in the areas along the shore, actually, the business owners are interested, and we've already started conversations with Dr. Tripp to see what kind of living shoreline improvements we can make, which will open up some grant funding and educational opportunities as well down there.
I would say my only comment would be is that this is a really good investment, and it's one of those things that it's due. When you go down there, I've been down there a couple times in the last few weeks, and you look at the investment that the businesses have made down there, it's very, very noticeable, and it's thriving. I don't know that there's another place in the city of Port Orange where per square foot you're seeing a return value geographically that size. I mean, it's impressive. It of course comes with the downside that there's not enough parking. And there's never going to be. And but it's okay. It's like I was talking to somebody the other day about Canal Street in New Smyrna. I don't know how they do it. There's no parking, but
it's a good problem to have.
Down there, right? It's weird.
It's a good problem to have.
It's one of those
sometimes.
things where I don't know that a community development department or a council can really do all the X's and O's, but it works.
Platted these out so many decades ago that. And these buildings have been there for decades, so we have what we have down there, and parking is a problem. That's a good problem because it means it's a popular area, of course, but a problem nonetheless.
And the last comment I was going to make really was for council that I think this investment is quite worthy in the River District, but whatever we decide to do down there as we move forward and with this kind of stuff. I think we should keep a mind of some consistency, because I'd like to see some consistency in things on the other side of the river as well. So if we're going to go with this themed railing, Marilyn, thanks for asking. I was wondering. That's what I thought it might be, but I was just checking. But what I'm saying, if we're going to do that, and then I want to see that tie into other places along the Causeway and some consistency in the river district, we're possible. But so yeah, it's exciting time.
So if I can touch on that, so this area over here where you see the yellow area, so we're hoping to be able to use the same kind of railing used at Riverwalk Park there. But in this area here, maybe you don't necessarily need that much structure, so you do more of like the rope or something like that. So we are looking at some of that. The other thing we would love to do, and hopefully you guys are have some buy-in into this and are into that, we really wanted to play on the color orange and remind people that this is Port Orange. It's not the shores, it's not Volusia County. And so we really wanted to play on the color orange with receptacles and just like some of the seating out there in the public areas. Just kind of make it fun. It's a fun place. It's not it's not your standard part of Port Orange. It's a really fun and unique place down there, so you want to kind of play on that.
You'll have some convincing to do with me. I'm not a big fan of orange as a decorated color, but it's fine. I can
challenge accepted.
And you were a hawk, orange and black.
Orange is the color of basketballs.
But I never wore an orange tie.
Oh, you're?
What'd she say?
Basketballs
are orange for a reason.
Actually, they're
Sorta,
brown.
sorta.
More brown.
Wow.
The old school leather balls are brown.
Maybe as we get closer.
I can be talked into it, though.
Let me just add to the conversation about parking. We did have a public docks down there until the hurricanes took them out in 16.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have sufficient dock space on the west side of the bridge, I'd advocate for us to find some funds to replace it. But the problem is that that would draw even more people there and take away parking from the businesses there. They're able, if people didn't have access to enjoy and see the water while they are there, I think that would be one thing. But they do, and what you're talking about, augmenting that area right there with the themed railing. Wow, I can't believe I'm saying that, but people have water access there. I think we need to be careful about what we add down there moving forward I think it needs to augment and improve what's already there, but we have to be careful about adding things that would actually bring people in and not necessarily being there to without visiting the businesses there, because this is their space first and foremost, and we're trying to make it better for them, because when we make it better for them, it's better for us.
Mhm.
We need to remember that. Any other questions for Penny?
Penny, when you, I know we're far out for this, but talk about RFPs for the murals and the artwork. Is there any way to maybe work with Art House and get volunteer art students, artists to, do some volunteer work and paint a mural?
I mean, they would definitely be invited, and we've made contacts even during family days and other events with local artists, and so
Okay.
the RFP would be open to anybody. We
Well,
just want to
instead of paying for the artwork,
Yeah.
they volunteer their services and then they get
Mhm.
to display their artwork that's pre-approved, obviously.
yeah, we
that's
want to
a-
make sure that it's professional quality down
Oh,
there.
yeah.
The size and scope of this
You're talking
has to
about
meet the size
professional
and scope of
contractor
what they're
grade.
able to.
That's a great
20
idea.
feet in the air.
And Drew, I'll just add to that in agreements with that, because we see a lot around the state, different counties wrapping their and doing murals for their electrical boxes and whatnot. And most counties and cities have a cultural arts program where they have
Yeah.
artistic
Just
and
a
it
thought.
saves the city money.
Saves some money,
They
yeah.
do it. That's a great idea to bring in there, Drew.
Any other comments?
No.
Anyone here from the public care to speak to the item? Back to council. Final comments or questions? None? Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Bastian.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
And Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Yes, 5-0. City attorney comments? Mr. Jones?
None tonight.
None.
Not yet.
Okay.
Along with that, though, I do want to let the rest of council know that Matt and I met last week to discuss his contract moving forward. There were some changes that were suggested and made. He implemented those changes and got those to me last night. I have not had a chance to read through the contract to make sure that it reflects those changes yet. And as soon as I do, he'll be sending the draft of that contract out for your review, so you'll have plenty of time with it and not just the few days before the
Okay.
next meeting.
Very good.
I think that that's important because there's really is quite a bit there. The other part of that is that I wanted to have my legal counsel check it, except that he is my legal counsel, so that's not good. But just
But we just hired special counsel. You could maybe borrow them for a buck.
No. I think I can read. City manager comments?
Yes, sir. Two things. First, I've started conversations with John Macaluso. I think he disappeared. But regarding a program that would instill a little bit of environmental attention to the city, and that would be something that we'd work with the county to do. There's a program called Bee Floridian that helps a little bit with fertilizing in the vicinity of watersheds, if you will, like Spruce Creek and whatnot. But I'd like to go a little more in depth with that. When I was up in the Tidewater area, we had a program called the River Star program, and you accomplished as a residence, or it was even more stringent as a commercial entity. You would do 8 or 9 things that benefited the environment. Picked up your animal feces, which, by the way, up there was optional. Not fertilized X amount of feet from watersheds. Picked up your grass clippings so they didn't end up in the storm water and things of that nature. You do these 8 or 9 things, and you show that you've done them, and you get a banner, a River Star banner that you put in front of your house, or you can claim that you're a River Star business. And it about 5 people in my neighborhood got it, and people said, "What's that?" And they said, "I want one of those." And next thing you know, we had probably 700 or 800 homes in my, little area of Norfolk that had these things, and it took on like wildfire. So I'm going to work with the Environmental Advisory Board and Volusia County to see if we can partner and get something like that going that benefits the environmental welfare of the city, and it educates people, because as soon as you say, "Where'd you get that?" or "What's that about?" Everybody wants to jump in and help. And so that's kind of one of the things that I would be working with the EAB with this year. The second thing is Robin and I have chatted, and we'd like to keep something similar to the same council meeting schedule that we had last year, with the exception of Election Day. If you look at your first and third Tuesdays and last Tuesday for workshops, and report to Robin if you have any dates that are definitely not going to work for you. I have the benefit of having 1, 2, 3, or 9 people that can sit in for me, but a bunch of you being gone would probably be detrimental to policy making. So if you can get those dates that you won't be around to Robin, we can work around that and get a schedule out. It's council schedule and local rules conversations are right around the corner. That's all I have.
City Council Committee reports. River to Sea TPO. Scott.
Looks like I've got both of these tonight. Not much for River to Sea TPO. Just a comment for our staff. One of the discussions that we keep talking about is cities being ready with projects, and money being left on the table at times in different organizations and different avenues, and it doesn't ever seem to be a problem for us. So that's a good thing, and that's a compliment to Jake and his staff for always having projects that are quote unquote shovel ready to go, so when they get to the end of those budget cycles and folks aren't ready, that money gets passed out and they're looking for cities to be ready. So kudos to our city team and staff for being always on ready for that. So another thing for us as a council to always keep in mind is that's the reason why we also want to have a little bit of money in our reserves, so we can jump on things and take advantage of stuff like that. Ready for the next one?
Lay it on us.
Got nothing, Dad.
Nice. That's it.
We're good.
Okay. General Employee
So
Pension Plan.
Can I
one quick comment?
go back? Yeah.
If it's not too late, Mayor, if it's okay.
And we'll roll it back.
So, I just wanted to comment on something, and Lynn, forgive me if we're already doing this. I don't mean any disrespect, but we got a briefing on what the county is doing out there at that intersection at Tomoka and Pioneer, and they've made a lot of different temporary changes and stuff like that. But one of the things they did out there, which, man, it really gets your attention at night, is they have put these reflectors on the stop sign posts themselves, vertical, on the bottom of the stop sign, all the way to the ground.
Starting to do it.
And man, does that thing light up when your headlights hit that. So just something I've seen that if we're not doing that, we should, especially if we've got problem areas at night with our traffic issues or crashes or what have you. I know we look at those statistics, but I just wanted to compliment that the changes they've made out there have been very noticeable. But how hard that just seems so simple. I don't know if they're wrapping the pipe, if it's a piece that
Sometimes
fits
it
on
makes you
there.
wonder why we couldn't have done that sooner.
Man,
It's a piece.
They need
So
to
we
say
have
that.
that on our pedestrian, some of our
Yes.
hard to see pedestrian crossing signs, but most of our accidents occur at stoplights.
Yep.
Right here in town. So
Along that, and I would ask you and I would ask staff any opportunities that we have to obtain grant funding to help make our intersections, particularly, I think of Dunlawton and Nova as one, more pedestrian friendly, and adding audio warnings to those lights would help tremendously. We do have hearing and sight impaired people that walk our city frequently, and if there are any opportunities that we have out there to find funding to help improve the pedestrian situation at our intersections.
FDOT put in some pedestrian, some type of pedestrian sensor. If you watched last week, they had guys up in bucket trucks putting these arms. I thought it was adaptive signaling. I'm like, all right. Tim's like, yeah, not so much, but it's some kind of pedestrian sensor. I don't know exactly what it does, but I do know that came up. The other thing.
So if you're out there hitting that button to slow traffic down on Dunlop just to test it,
Yeah.
I'm gonna test
Well,
you.
maybe that's what it is, right? So the other thing I'd like to mention with being shovel ready is Tim and his crew had a bunch of left-hand turn things ready, and FDOT had some what's that funding called? The like ready to construct money. So yeah, so they're ready to construct, and I think we might get 2 of them on them because they have money.
Huge.
So those are freebies that we don't have to leverage TPO money or anything else to do. So
Keep at it.
that's the advantage, yeah. And they're going to construct it, so
Anything
we
else
don't even
on
have to
TPO?
go through that.
No.
General Employees Pension Plan.
Had a doctor's appointment on that one, so I didn't make the last meeting, but I looked at the notes and the minutes, I didn't see anything that was.
Oh, general employee.
Yeah. Do you have a comment you want to make on that, Jay?
Sure, no.
We gave our evaluations, and if I recall, we did the agreement to keep the administrator for another year. Pete Pryor and forget.
Benefits USA.
Yeah, Benefits USA.
Benefits.
Thank you, Benefits USA. So, and that was about it. We discussed a little bit about the lowering the rate to meet meet the economy, but we decided to keep it at 7% last year, and I didn't get any indication that we were going to move forward fast with that in the next month or two. So that was all that we really talked about of substance.
Is there still an opening or 2 openings on that board?
2 openings on
There's
the
2 for trustees.
Hadley left. Cindy took 1, so there might only be 1 left.
1 opening on that, okay.
Yeah, Cindy Rivera stepped up
Nice.
for one of them. I believe Pete Pryor's taking care of that. Yep.
Anything else on that item?
And we have, nothing like that, we have an employee awards lunch banquet. Is that tomorrow or is that next week?
That's tomorrow.
Tomorrow at 11:30, employee recognition banquet.
Yeah.
Years of service recognition.
I know I missed the one.
If any of y'all are available for that, I will see you there. Otherwise, if no other other business comes for us this evening, we will be back again in 2 weeks. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.